13 legendary stars of Hollywood seemed untouchable under the bright lights, but their lives were quietly consumed by smoke. Behind the glamour, cigarettes became the silent co-stars that followed them into tragedy. Stay with us, because by the end of this story, you will see how heavy smoking claimed icons in ways more shocking than the movies they starred in. Number 1. Desi Arnaz. In the autumn of the year 1986, his health collapsed when doctors confirmed advanced lung cancer. The man who had once filled living rooms across America with laughter in the golden age of television now struggled for breath. By November, his condition worsened, and he returned home to Del Mar, California, where family surrounded him during his last days. On the 2nd of December 1986, he passed away at the age of 69, his body overwhelmed by the damage of decades of smoking. The world remembered him first, as the Cuban bandleader who changed television forever. Together with Lucille Ball, he created a cultural phenomenon with I Love Lucy, a show that introduced the multi-camera format and redefined comedy for generations. Off-screen, his business sense revolutionized production and syndication, making him not only a performer, but a visionary who shaped the entire industry. His accent, his music, and his charm became part of the American story of the 1950s. Yet in nearly every photograph from that era, he carried a cigarette. Smoking was his constant companion in rehearsal rooms, at the studio, and even at home. What once looked like sophistication gradually robbed him of his health. The cough became chronic, the shortness of breath more severe, until the diagnosis could no longer be avoided. Friends and colleagues spoke later of how much he regretted the habit, but by then the damage was irreversible. The loss was deeply felt, not only because of his talent, but because of the warmth he brought to audiences. Millions had grown up watching his quick wit and musical energy. His final goodbye reminded Hollywood that even the brightest stars cannot escape the consequences of choices made in youth. The shadow of cigarettes followed him until the end, leaving behind a cautionary tale wrapped in the glow of television history. If you want to hear more stories about the hidden tragedies of Hollywood legends, remember to subscribe so you will not miss the next chapter. Number 2. Betty Grable. In the spring of the year 1973, she was admitted to the hospital after months of worsening pain and fatigue. Doctors discovered that she was suffering from lung cancer in an advanced stage, a disease that had already spread beyond control. By early summer, her condition had deteriorated rapidly, and she spent her final weeks in Santa Monica surrounded by friends and family. On the 2nd of July 1973, she died at the age of 56, leaving behind a legacy that had once been the very image of wartime hope. During the 1940s, her face and figure appeared on countless posters carried by soldiers overseas. She was celebrated as the ultimate pinup girl, a symbol of glamour and resilience during the dark days of World War II. Hollywood elevated her to one of the most bankable stars of her era, with musicals and comedies that showcased her dancing, her voice, and her radiant smile. She became one of the highest-paid women in America, a fixture of 20th century popular culture. Away from the spotlight, the habits of the time were ever present. Cigarettes followed her on set, in nightclubs, and in private moments. Photographers often caught her with a cigarette in hand, part of an image that seemed sophisticated and modern. In truth, the steady smoke was carving away at her health. Coughs lingered, energy faded, and by the early 1970s, her body bore the hidden price of those choices. Her death shocked fans who had always seen her as forever young, preserved in the vibrant technicolor of classic Hollywood films. Tributes poured in from across the entertainment world, remembering not only her beauty but the optimism she represented for a generation. Many of the soldiers who had pinned her photograph to their barracks walls in wartime mourned the loss as if it were personal. For them, she had been more than an actress. She was a companion in memory and a reminder of home. The tragedy of Betty Grable's passing underlined how even the brightest icons of American culture were vulnerable to the dangers of smoking. Her career captured the joy of an era, but her final chapter stood as a stark reminder of how fragile life can be behind the camera's glow. Number 3. Robert Mitchum. In the summer of the year 1997, his health faltered when doctors revealed he had lung cancer. The illness had already advanced, and his once commanding frame grew weaker with each passing month. On the 1st of July 1997, he died at his home in Santa Barbara, California, at the age of 79. Only a day later, Hollywood would lose another legend, James Stewart, marking one of the saddest weeks in film history. During his career, he embodied the rugged anti-hero, a man whose weary eyes and gravel voice defined the film noir era. From Out of the Past to The Night of the Hunter, his performances carried a mix of menace and charisma that set him apart from polished leading men. Directors admired his natural presence, an ability to inhabit roles with a casual authenticity that seemed effortless. Audiences saw him as both dangerous and magnetic, a reflection of post-war America's complexities. Behind the scenes, his life was filled with cigarettes. Whether on a film set, at an interview, or during long nights in Los Angeles clubs, a cigarette was always nearby. The smoke became part of his image, a haze that suited the cynical loners he often played. What the public saw as cool indifference was in truth a habit that slowly eroded his health. Years of steady smoking damaged his lungs until the diagnosis was unavoidable. The end came quietly compared to the storms of his career. Friends remembered his sharp humor, his refusal to play by Hollywood's rules, and his generosity to those he trusted. Colleagues recalled how his presence could dominate a screen without effort, how he made difficult acting look simple. His passing left a gap in the memory of cinema, a reminder that the rebellious spirit he carried could not withstand the toll of a lifetime of smoke. The story of Robert Mitchum's decline is both a testament to his enduring influence and a cautionary note on the dangers hidden behind an image. He represented strength and independence, but even those qualities could not protect him from the slow destruction brought by cigarettes. His death closed the chapter on a unique Hollywood figure whose shadow still lingers across the silver screen. Number 4. John Wayne. In the early months of the year, 1964 surgeons removed a cancerous lung and 2 ribs after years of heavy smoking caught up with him. The operation was considered successful, and for a time he returned to work, determined to maintain the image of the indestructible cowboy. In the years that followed, he spoke openly about his illness, lending his voice to cancer awareness campaigns. Yet he never fully escaped the damage done. By the late 1970s, new health problems appeared, and by early 1979 his body was failing. On the 11th of June 1979, he died in Los Angeles at the age of 72, his towering presence stilled by cancer. For decades, he had symbolized American strength and resilience. From stagecoach to true grit, his broad shoulders and steady drawl defined the Western and war film genres. Audiences around the world looked to him as the embodiment of courage, a man who faced danger with calm authority. The Academy honored him with an Oscar for true grit, cementing his status as a legend whose characters inspired generations. Off-screen, he was admired for his patriotism, his larger-than-life personality, and his devotion to family. Cigarettes were a constant in his life from his youth. He smoked heavily on and off set, often seen with a cigarette in hand, between takes. The culture of the time embraced the habit, and Wayne himself once admitted to smoking 5 packs a day. The strain on his lungs was immense, and even after surgery, he could not escape the consequences of decades of inhaled smoke. His voice grew raspier, his energy declined, and eventually stomach cancer spread beyond treatment. The nation mourned deeply when he passed. Crowds lined the streets, tributes flooded newspapers, and politicians honored him as a symbol of American spirit. For many fans, his death felt personal, the closing of an era in which he had been a constant figure on screen. His final years, marked by pain and illness, showed the cost of a life lived under the shadow of smoking. The legacy of John Wayne remains vast, a mixture of cinematic triumph and human vulnerability. He stood tall as the cowboy hero, but behind the legend was a man whose health could not withstand the years of cigarettes that ultimately claimed him. Number 5. George Peppard. In the spring of the year 1992, doctors discovered that he had lung cancer after months of worsening health. Surgery removed part of his lung, and for a brief period it seemed as though he might recover. By the following year, complications arose, and his body struggled to heal from the toll of both the disease and years of heavy smoking. On the 8th of May 1994, he died in Los Angeles at the age of 65, ending a career that had once promised endless possibilities. During the 1960s, he emerged as a leading man with striking looks and undeniable charisma. He starred opposite Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's, a role that secured his place in cinema history. His career included war dramas, thrillers, and stage performances, but he would later become best known to television audiences as Colonel John Hannibal Smith in The A-Team. His gravelly voice, sharp wit, and presence made him a memorable figure for an entire generation of viewers. Smoking was woven into his daily life and often into his characters. The image of the cigarette in hand seemed natural to him, part of a generation that equated smoke with style. Behind the cool exterior, the habit was eroding his health year after year. Even after his surgery, he could not fully repair the damage. His breathing became more labored, and the vitality that once defined his roles faded away. Friends remembered him as both charming and complicated. Colleagues spoke of his talent and his drive, but also of the battles he fought with studios and the frustrations that limited the full scope of his career. In his final years, he sought to rebuild his health, but the long shadow of smoking had already written the ending. His passing was felt not only by fans of his films, but also by those who had come to admire his resilience on television. The story of George Peppard is one of brilliance touched by regret. He brought unforgettable moments to the screen, yet his life ended far too early. His decline revealed how cigarettes, once treated as harmless accessories of stardom, could devastate even the most promising careers and silence of voice that had entertained millions. Number 6. Tony Curtis. In the final days of September in the year 2010, he suffered cardiac arrest at his home in Henderson, Nevada. His death at the age of 85 came after years of battling chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, a condition worsened by decades of heavy smoking. The illness had limited his energy, reduced his public appearances, and forced him to confront the price of a lifetime spent under a haze of cigarettes. In his prime, he was one of Hollywood's most dazzling leading men. With striking looks and undeniable charisma, he starred in a wide range of films, from swashbuckling adventures to heartfelt dramas. His role in Sweet Smell of Success displayed a darker edge, while Some Like It Hot alongside Marilyn Monroe and Jack Lemmon remains one of the greatest comedies in cinema history. His versatility earned him an Academy Award nomination for The Defiant Ones, where he proved he was more than just a matinee idol. Behind the glamour, he carried habits that slowly eroded his health. He had been a heavy smoker for much of his life, often seen with a cigarette on and off the set. The damage accumulated over the decades until his lungs could no longer sustain the energy that had once defined his performances. The breathing difficulties grew worse, the fatigue heavier, and by his later years he relied on medical support to manage even daily activities. Friends and family remembered him as both brilliant and restless, a man who loved the spotlight but also wrestled with the burdens of fame. He embraced painting in his later years, pouring creative energy into canvases when his health limited his acting work. Despite his illnesses, he remained admired by fans who cherished his screen legacy and the unforgettable characters he brought to life. His death was mourned across Hollywood and beyond, closing the chapter on a career that had spanned more than half a century. The story of Tony Curtis reveals how a life of stardom can be shadowed by private struggles, and how cigarettes, once seen as fashionable, could shorten even the brightest lives. If you want to continue exploring the tragic stories of Hollywood's greatest stars, remember to subscribe so you never miss what comes next. Number 7. Spencer Tracy. In the early summer of the year 1967, his health was in steep decline after years of battling heart disease and the toll of heavy smoking. On the 10th of June, he died at his home in Beverly Hills at the age of 67, only 17 days after completing his final film, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. His sudden passing ended one of the most celebrated acting careers in Hollywood history. From the 1930s through the 1960s, he was recognized as one of the finest actors of his generation. He won 2 Academy Awards for Best Actor and was nominated for many more, a record that reflected the depth of his talent. His performances in films such as Captain's Courageous, Boys Town, and Inherit the Wind demonstrated his ability to convey both strength and vulnerability. Audiences and critics alike admired his natural style, which gave even the most dramatic roles a quiet authenticity. Off-screen, he was known for his private struggles. Years of smoking and drinking placed enormous strain on his heart. Doctors had warned him repeatedly to change his lifestyle, yet the pressures of fame and his own habits kept him on a destructive path. Cigarettes were a constant presence in dressing rooms, during breaks on set, and at social gatherings. By the 1960s, his body could no longer withstand the cumulative damage. Those who worked with him in his final years spoke of his courage and dedication. Despite his frail health, he delivered a powerful performance in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, a film that broke barriers and addressed racial tensions in America. His co-star, Katharine Hepburn, who had been his companion for decades, was at his side when he passed. The loss was devastating for her and for the many who had admired his artistry. The death of Spencer Tracy was a turning point for Hollywood. a reminder that even its greatest figures were not immune to the consequences of their choices. His career remained an inspiration, but his end showed the heavy price paid by those who lived with cigarettes as constant companions. His legacy endures as both triumph and tragedy, a portrait of genius shadowed by human frailty. Number 8. James Garner. In the summer of the year 2014, his health gave way after years of struggling with heart disease and the lingering effects of decades of smoking. On the 19th of July, he died at his home in Los Angeles at the age of 86. His passing ended a career that had spanned more than 50 years and left fans mourning a beloved star who had defined both television and film. During the 1950s, he rose to fame as the charming gambler Brett Maverick in the hit television series Maverick. His easygoing style and quick wit made him a household name and won him a loyal audience. In the 1970s, he achieved another wave of popularity as private investigator Jim Rockford in The Rockford Files, a role that earned him an Emmy Award and cemented his reputation as one of television's most enduring leading men. He also enjoyed success on the big screen with performances in The Great Escape, Grand Prix, and Murphy's Romance, which earned him an Academy Award nomination. Behind his relaxed screen presence was a man who struggled with health challenges. He had been a heavy smoker for many years, a habit that eventually left lasting damage to his lungs and heart. In the 1980s, he underwent heart bypass surgery, a warning sign that his body was paying the price for decades of cigarettes. Though he later quit, the long-term effects remained, and his final years were marked by fragile health. Friends and colleagues remembered him as down-to-earth, professional, and generous. He disliked Hollywood pretension and often described himself simply as a working actor. Despite his fame, he remained accessible and relatable, qualities that audiences recognized in the roles he played. His performances carried warmth and humor, making him one of the most likable stars of his generation. When he died, tributes came from across the entertainment world. Fans recalled not just his characters, but the sense of integrity he brought to every role. His death underscored how even those who seemed eternally youthful on screen could not escape the toll of cigarettes and illness. The story of James Garner remains a reminder of the power of charm and talent, as well as the fragility of life behind the camera. Number 9. Richard Boone. In the winter of the year 1981, his health collapsed after doctors confirmed that he had lung cancer. He spent his final months in St. Augustine, Florida, where the illness advanced quickly and left him increasingly frail. On the 10th of January 1981, he died at the age of 63, bringing an end to a career marked by powerful performances and a commanding presence. His career stretched across stage, film, and television, but he became most famous for his role as Paladin in the long-running series Have Gun Will Travel. The show made him a familiar figure in American households during the 1950s and early 1960s, and his portrayal of the thoughtful gunfighter remains one of the defining characters of the era. He later appeared in numerous films, including westerns and war dramas, and earned respect for his intensity and ability to dominate a scene. Smoking was part of his life, both on screen and off. The cigarette fit easily into his rugged image, reinforcing the persona of the hardened man he so often played. Away from the cameras, it became a daily habit, one that damaged his lungs year by year. By the time symptoms appeared, it was too late for effective treatment. His cough deepened, his voice grew rougher, and the weight of illness became impossible to ignore. Those who knew him remembered a man of intelligence and wit, sometimes difficult but always deeply committed to his craft. He taught acting later in life and shared his experience with younger performers, leaving behind not only roles but also lessons that shaped future generations. His last years were quieter, far removed from the Hollywood spotlight, but his influence remained strong among fans of classic television and film. The death of Richard Boone marked the loss of a performer whose presence had once loomed large across screens. His fate illustrated the hidden dangers that accompanied the habits of his era, when smoking was a symbol of toughness rather than a threat. His story continues to echo as a reminder of how quickly health can be taken away, even from those who seemed unshakable in their prime. Number 10. Van Heflin. In the summer of the year 1971, his health deteriorated suddenly when he suffered a massive heart attack. He was rushed to a hospital in Hollywood, but his condition failed to improve. After several weeks of declining strength, another heart attack struck, leaving doctors powerless to save him. On the 23rd of July 1971, he died at the age of 62, a premature end to the life of a man once considered one of the finest actors of his generation. His career began in the theater before he moved to Hollywood, where he quickly earned recognition for his versatility. In 1942, he won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in Johnny Eager, a performance that showcased his depth and presence. He went on to star in a wide range of films, including Shane, where his role as a determined homesteader became iconic, and The Strange Love of Martha Ivers, where he displayed his ability to balance strength with vulnerability. Audiences admired his authenticity, and critics praised his craft. Cigarettes were a constant companion throughout his life. The image of the confident actor with a cigarette in hand was part of Hollywood culture in his era. Behind the glamour, the habit steadily weakened his body. Years of smoking placed enormous strain on his heart, contributing to the attacks that ended his life so suddenly. Friends later reflected that his health had shown signs of decline long before his death, but in a time when smoking was accepted, few recognized the danger until it was too late. His death shocked colleagues who remembered him as disciplined and professional, a performer who brought intensity and intelligence to every role. He had been respected not only for his talent, but for his dedication to family and to the craft of acting. The sudden nature of his passing left fans stunned, as he had remained active in film and television up until his final months. The story of Van Heflin is one of brilliance, shadowed by fragility. His achievements on screen endure as part of Hollywood's golden age, but his decline revealed the destructive power of cigarettes and the silent damage done over time. His loss served as a reminder that even the most celebrated talents were not immune to the consequences of smoking. Number 11. George Raft. In the autumn of the year 1980, he was admitted to a hospital in Los Angeles after months of failing health. Doctors revealed that he was suffering from emphysema brought on by decades of heavy smoking. His condition deteriorated quickly, and he remained under care until the 24th of November 1980, when he died at the age of 79. His passing closed the life of a man whose career had been as colorful as the roles he played on screen. He was best remembered for portraying gangsters and tough men in films during the 1930s and 1940s. His performances in movies like Scarface and They Drive by Night gave him an aura of danger that audiences found compelling. He became associated with the image of the suave but ruthless criminal, a role he inhabited so convincingly that it sometimes blurred with his real-life persona. Off-screen, he was known for his connections with underworld figures, a fact that added to his mystique but also complicated his career. Throughout his life, cigarettes were always near. He smoked heavily, a habit that seemed to match the smoky clubs and late-night parties that filled his world. The constant presence of tobacco weakened his lungs and made breathing more difficult with age. By the late 1970s, his health was fragile, and emphysema left him struggling for air in his final years. What had once looked glamorous on screen had quietly consumed his strength behind the curtain. Friends and colleagues remembered him as both enigmatic and loyal. He had turned down roles that later became iconic for other actors, choices that changed the path of his career. Yet he remained a recognizable figure in Hollywood, someone whose style and demeanor carried echoes of an earlier age. Even as his health declined, he kept his charm, though his energy faded and the weight of illness showed in his final appearances. The death of George Raft was a reminder of how the symbols of sophistication in one generation became the seeds of tragedy in another. His image as the archetypal gangster lived on in film history, but his real story ended with a struggle against the very habit that had once seemed inseparable from his identity. Number 12. Don Ameche. In the spring of the year 1993, he was hospitalized after his health declined from prostate cancer that had spread throughout his body. Months of treatment could not reverse the damage, and by the autumn, his condition grew worse. On the 6th of December 1993, he died at his home in Scottsdale, Arizona, at the age of 85. His passing marked the end of a career that had spanned more than half a century and touched nearly every corner of entertainment. He first gained fame in the 1930s and 1940s as a leading man in musicals, comedies, and dramas. With his smooth voice and elegant style, he became a favorite of audiences, starring in films such as The Story of Alexander Graham Bell, where his performance gave rise to the affectionate phrase, the Ameche, for the telephone. He moved effortlessly from radio to film and later television, a versatile performer who adapted to the changes of the industry. In the 1980s, he experienced a remarkable comeback with his role in Cocoon, which earned him an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. Behind his polished image, smoking was a steady part of his life, Like many actors of his generation, he was rarely without a cigarette during his early years in Hollywood. The habit followed him through decades of work, eroding his health over time and contributing to the illnesses that plagued him later in life. By his final years, he carried the burden of a body weakened by both age and the long-term effects of smoking. Friends and colleagues remembered him as gracious, witty, and professional. He had a reputation for kindness and reliability, qualities that endeared him to those who worked alongside him. His late career resurgence proved his enduring appeal, showing that even after decades away from leading roles, he could still capture the hearts of audiences. The death of Don Ameche saddened fans who had admired his elegance and charm for generations. His career offered a portrait of Hollywood's shifting eras, from Golden Age musicals to modern dramas. His life also stood as a reminder of the hidden costs of smoking, which had followed him behind the glamour and contributed to the decline of a man who had once been a symbol of vitality and grace. Number 13. Harry Dean Stanton. In the autumn of the year 2017, his health gave out after years of gradual decline. On the 15th of September, he died in Los Angeles at the age of 91. The official cause was natural, but decades of heavy smoking had left their mark, weakening his lungs and body long before the final day arrived. His passing closed the story of one of the most distinctive and enduring character actors in Hollywood. His career stretched across 6 decades and included nearly 200 film and television roles. He became known for his weary face, gentle drawl, and ability to embody drifters, outcasts, and philosophers of the American screen. Films such as Paris, Texas, Alien, and Repo Man revealed his gift for bringing quiet depth to unusual characters. He could steal a scene without raising his voice, creating moments of poignancy that lingered long after the credits rolled. Cigarettes were as much a part of his image as his lined face and soulful eyes. He smoked heavily from his youth through old age, often with a cigarette in hand even during interviews and performances. The smoke shaped his voice into a raspy whisper that added to his unique presence, but it also wore down his body over time. By his later years, he lived with the burden of failing health, though he continued to work steadily, appearing in film and television almost until the end. Those who knew him described a man of honesty and simplicity. He lived modestly, often preferring the company of musicians and fellow drifters rather than the glamour of Hollywood parties. His friendships with artists and actors endured for decades, and many spoke of his loyalty and authenticity. He carried the same qualities into his performances, making his characters believable because he himself was never false. The death of Harry Dean Stanton was mourned not with shock, but with a sense of quiet reverence. Fans remembered a man who seemed eternal, a fixture of American film whose presence never needed stardom to be unforgettable. His story showed how smoking had shaped both his art and his decline, leaving behind a legacy of haunting beauty, shadowed by fragility. If you want to discover more untold stories about Hollywood's brightest stars and their hidden tragedies, remember to subscribe so you never miss what comes next.